Good day, everyone. I am Rika Mumpontipan, and today I will be discussing the topic that focuses on the theme living in the pandemic. Youth loves wandering and enjoy their life being a youth. As the COVID-19 pandemic appeared, it postponed events and limited them to do a lot of their favorite activities, including the parties they used to have, bond with their friends, and the trips they often do. Their normal activities has been cut off and they stuck at home. There's no wonder that many teenagers are feeling depressed, angry, and bored. This pandemic has brought a big fear to everyone's lives, and this is the toughest part of experience. As of today, that teenagers can't go outside and they do things they were used to do. These are some activities they like to do at home. Instead of making this pandemic a year of breaks because of cancellation of activities, they can look toward how post-pandemic future and work on a vision of something that will be memorable and fun. Since there's a legislation that need to be followed, which is the social distancing, it will be difficult for them to hang out with friends, and this is the time that they will be using screen time where they can talk and have a chit chat with their friends. Using gadgets and internet, the distance is no longer the problem. They can still connect with their friends or start a new friendship. Also, we have a social media platforms popular among youth named TikTok. They can use this app to try dance challenges, photography projects, and other activities based on their interests. Then to continue having a healthy and good posture, they can have a simple exercise at home, a walk or a joy around their house. This may help them having a strong and healthy body. They should also understand that their actions matter in a simple behavior, such as a hand washing, mask wearing, and social distancing shows a big part of protecting their own health and also the health of other people around them. However, as the pandemic continues, we can't just stay at home for a long time. We have to interact others and work to earn money and buy foods because we do this for a living. It is important to practice ourselves in figuring out how to socialize safety to protect our health of others. As the year of 2019 unfolds between our very eyes, we are apparently not expecting a global pandemic that would sweep the whole world in the next year by storm. This year has been tough and difficult for most of us because of the underlying danger that this pandemic brought to the world. We experienced different kinds of community quarantine and faced an enormous amount of threats due to the drastic transmission of COVID-19 virus. And it never stopped until it caused a lot of businesses to close and establishments to bankruptcy, countries to announce economic crisis, and a lot more. Today, we are in the last quarter of the year and we are all experienced a lot of new normal setups that definitely changed our way of living in the past decade. Education adopts the online teaching and learning that oblige students to use technology and other forms of social media platforms that can help them learn their lesson through the internet. Entertainment industry has obviously put on hold for months because of the restriction that the government protocols demanded to everyone. So a lot of showbiz people find themselves jobless. Establishment gone through a tough time recovering with the threat of the pandemic because apparently restaurants and malls were temporarily closed and some announced bankruptcy. With all these things that happened, people still recovered fortunately, and eventually we adapted to the new normal setup because it is the only way to continue our lives amidst the pandemic. But as the pandemic continued to threaten the lives of many, there are also problems that arose and made people panic. One of the examples of this is the misinformation or fake news that the people uploaded on the internet. This information must not be prioritized and should be reported whenever we encounter one. because instead of helping people get through the situation we are currently facing, it only cultivates fear and panic on the minds of people. Another is the implementation of protocols and the government response to the threat of this widespread pandemic. There have been a lot of protests from people all around the country, demanding the government to conduct mass testing and an extensive implementation of protocols in order to contain the virus. In fact, one of the most prestigious schools in the country, which is the University of the Philippines, tried to start simulation COVID-19 testing kits but no to avail. The mass testing realization was just recently announced by our president after 9 months of pondering what good will brought to people. And thankfully, our government responded at last. Another controversy that arose amidst the threat of the pandemic was the violation of health protocols made by some of the highest government officials such as Senator Kiko Pimentel and Chief of Police Debo Sinas. These controversies made a lot of noise to the public because they are considered to be public figures but apparently breached the protocols made by the government. The government responsibility on the said pandemic is enormous and people are looking up to them for security and other purposes. That's why I think they must be more careful and not make such big controversies so that the Filipino community will trust them more on this issue. Even if some of the government officials fail to follow the rules and regulations, I think we as citizens of the country should follow the health protocols implemented, such as the 1 meter social distancing, the curfews, wearing a face mask in public places, and not engage ourselves into parties that would eventually violate the protocols mentioned. Aside from that, we must also be honest and truthful upon engaging ourselves in the contract tracing because if we try to be dishonest to the healthcare workers, we are basically putting our loved ones at risk and other people who came in contact with us. We should always practice to be more cooperative and follow the quarantine procedure in order to prevent the further transmission of the virus. Social media, on the other hand, has a great impact in the current situation we are in. The role of media has been critical because primarily they are the ones who deliver the news about the development of the pandemic and inform us with the most important things that we need to know nowadays. So, basically, they should be more precise and fair when it comes to reporting significant data to the public in order for us to function accordingly. The distribution of news and articles related to the virus must not be limited to a fewer audience but rather accommodates a large amount of individuals who are in need of those information. Other social platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram should also be used as one of the outlets in informing people about the value of the government protocols and few reminders about the risks of the virus so that people would always be careful and enlightened. Lastly, our role and responsibility as a citizen of the country is to be cooperative and obedient to the government protocols implemented, because it is solely for our own good. In order to protect ourselves and our loved ones with the threat of this seemingly endless fight with COVID-19, we must also be responsible with our actions. Whatever we may need to do, we should always remember to put a mask on, follow social distancing, and even report people who violates the rules that we are currently abiding today. It is really important to know the serious effect of being an obedient citizen from a hard-headed one, because we might harm another person's life if we try to be stubborn. It is our duty to become an ally with our government because we cannot win this fight if we continue to violate and breach protocols. Remember that only if we become united that we are able to overcome this crisis we are facing. So, before we do something impulsive, we must think of the consequences we would face after. Once again, Be responsible and obedient at all times. Together, we can heal as one.
It's been a month that coronavirus attacked our peaceful life. Over 1 million people around the world have died. Hundreds of thousands get sick every day. Coronavirus has affected us so much. We were still wearing our smiles on our faces. We're free at all time. But as time passed by, just a blink of an eye, it all vanished. One time long ago, people stood next to each other at all time. As COVID-19 lockdowns were introduced, we all suddenly had to find new ways of doing things. Schooling shifted online, meetings moved to Zoom, workplaces brought in new measures, and even social events have changed to minimize physical interaction. Many of us have found it hard to adapt to this transformation our lives. COVID-19 pandemic is changing many aspects of individual life, not only how we work, live and learn, but most importantly, our perception and behavior in this changing society and world. It is obviously a challenge for the government to balance our individual rights and interests of society. For example, the government is responsible for providing accurate and up-to-date information about the said virus, which is necessary for the protection of health rights. However, it must also restrict and regulate misinformation and disinformation on social media, which causes concerns about limitation on freedom of expression. Another example is mask wearing, which concerns the question of whether it is proportionate for a government to restrict individuals to wear masks in public in different situations or scenarios. The coronavirus that causes COVID-19 is highly contagious, and if you're in contact with someone who is infected, you're at risk of catching it as well. The best ways to protect yourself, then, are to stay from people who have coronavirus. But some infected people don't have symptoms. Without testing, you can say for sure that someone doesn't have the virus. Anyone who's infected can release tiny virus-laden particles from their mouth or nose when they cough, talk, or breathe. Staying away from others, even if they don't look sick, can help keep you safe. Early recommendations were to stay around 6 feet apart from people you don't live with. In some situations that still make sense, you should also wash your hands regularly and wipe down surfaces like doorknobs and countertops, although the virus doesn't seem to spread as easily that way. Face masks do two things: keep you from accidentally spreading the coronavirus to others and cut down on your risk of catching COVID-19. If you're infected and don't know it, wearing a mask will block some of the virus particles you exhale every breath, which means less makes their way into the eyes, noses, and mouths of the people around you. It is included fever, cough, difficulty breathing, body aches, headaches, and losses of taste or smell. They are similar to the symptom of the flu, which makes it hard to tell the two apart without testing. Right now, in the world, we are in a fight of our lives against the coronavirus. It has affected many people, including myself. I am now at home every day and it's really affecting me socially. Not being able to speak to friends and see people I see on a regular basis is hard for me. Also, now that schooling is shifted to online, it has really had an effect on my school life. I am not used to being at home all the time and working on the computer. I am usually in a classroom surrounded by my peers and classmates. However, I am a human, so I will learn to adapt, but for now, it is hard. Most kids needs to be outside and with people to release their energy and socialize. Now this cannot be happen because the virus has affected us so much. Youth are now forced to stay home instead of going to school and spending time with friends. These unfortunate events have led many people to be disconnected from society. This has allowed my mind to go to the dark outside, where my fears come out. My main fear is, how long will my life be on pause? I'm afraid of how long I will be stuck in the house and can't see what's happening outside. Will it be a couple more weeks or will it be a couple of months? Change can be difficult to deal with, even when it's for the better. While it might feel as if the coronavirus crisis is over, it's not. The virus is still out there. No one knows. Expert though knows, though, that it won't last forever. Fear will not have the last word, but love and hope will. Let us use these troubled times as a way to journey with the youth, a way to empower our youth in such a way that will connect them like never before. A simple but compelling way to do this is through the power of story. Specifically, let us allow our youth to share the stories with each other as they experience and live through these uncertain times. Let us invite them into conversation with each other through the windows of their words and their own voices. In 2021, humanity will continue to adapt to living with the virus in ways that make the coexistence less taxing. Welcoming the new year may feel a bit different this year, given the challenges of 2020 and the inability to celebrate together. For many people, the yearly date changes, adding one more year to life's tally, puts a greater focus on a long-term goals than busy lives usually allow. But this year, thinking about the long term is much more difficult. The pandemic has given us all a different experience of time. In 2021, humanity will continue to adapt to living with the virus in ways that make the coexistence less taxing. The basics will remain the same. Masks and hand washing will still be necessary. But as the pandemic enters its second year, be prepared for changes in three areas: testing, quarantine rules, and the guidelines for social distancing. Of course, our New Year's resolution tips for 2021 focus on getting to the end of COVID 19. As of now, not much is known about whether people do, in fact, build immunity against the coronavirus, nor about how long that immunity may last. There may be a COVID 19 vaccine by the end of the year, but normality may not come until end of 2021. We all know that 2020 was a year full of unexpected challenges, hardships, and stress because of the COVID 19 pandemic. However, as we make plans to ring in 2021, please consider COVID 19 safety. Although it may still be possible to continue some of your favorite New Year's tradition during the pandemic, you and your family and friends may need to adjust your usual plan that everyone can participate safely. 2020 was a difficult one, but we survived. We endured the challenges, and some of us even discovered newfound strength. We may not be our old selves, and we may be missing some of our friends and loved ones, but we are here, and that gives us reason enough to say thank you. We all want our lives back, as COVID 19 vaccine is likely to be authorized before the end of the year, but doesn't mean you'll be able to throw away your mask anytime soon. The COVID 19 pandemic is challenging us in many ways we could never have imagined, from unprecedented amounts of family time, to homeschooling, to working remotely, or not working at all. These sudden, rapid changes in the way we live, coupled with uncertainty, can feel overwhelming. While we may know that it's helpful to everyone to stay positive, it's sometimes easier said than done. Remember, if we will not be this way forever, this is difficult time, but it is just that a time. This is all a bit surreal, really, isn't it? Coronavirus changed the world as we knew in 2020. We went from 0 to 100 in seconds and the whole world came to a complete standstill. Don't be panic. Instead, always think positive. Together, we can heal as one.